We are just a month away. The full reveal of College Football 25 coming out in May. I'm very excited. If you watched my video criticizing EA and College Football 25 a couple months ago after the college football playoff, you saw where I was very pessimistic. This video, however, is going to be the complete opposite. I'm going to be bringing a lot of positive energy because with all intents and purposes, it looks like we're going to have our first college football video game coming out this summer for the first time in over 10 years. And with that, there hasn't been a whole lot of information that's come out. Apparently, they've been working on the game for over a year, several years now. Of course, they announced that it was going to be coming back several years ago. So this has been more than a year in the making, but we haven't gotten a whole lot of information yet. That is until a couple months ago. Of course, the teaser trailer came out, a kind of slap in my face and everyone's face who was doubting EA Sports to say, hey, we're really coming out with the game. That kind of left us guessing and didn't give us a whole lot of information. So in the following weeks since that trailer came out, there's been some interviews that people have done that are associated with the game or even in the game. And I took the liberty to go through a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews, so you don't have to, and kind of break down some things that stood out to me. So with that being said, we're going to first look at the broadcast teams in the game. Now, the broadcast teams, of course, the announcing teams, the halftime show, maybe even College Game Day. I don't know, it's kind of just a speculation on my behalf. But when I mention the guys that are going to be in the game, you might kind of see where I'm going with that a little bit more. But Kirk Herbstreit came out and said on the Street Talk podcast, I believe that's with his two sons. It was pretty interesting. He did an interview just talking about the game, answering some questions from some fans just about what was to come. And a quote that stands out from Kirk Herbstreit himself, of course, Kirk's going to be on the game. He says, as you're doing different games, there'll be different broadcast teams doing the games. Now, as Kirk kind of came out and revealed some information, he didn't say a whole lot. Of course, he's not really at liberty to. I'm sure EA, before he did the interview, was like, look, there's certain things you can't say, you can't talk about. And they kind of straight up asked him several things, which we'll get to, some of the things that they highlighted in the interview coming up. But he wouldn't really say a whole lot, which, I mean, I don't blame him. He probably wasn't able to. But once he came out with that interview, I believe shortly after that, there were several others that had been on the game in the past or, are heavily involved with college football that have came out and said they'll be in the game too. Some notable ones, of course, are Reese Davis, Desmond Howard, David Pollock. They all confirmed that they are in the game. Now, another person who was going to be in the game doing the halftime show, now, interestingly enough, in the past, I believe it was Reese Davis and David Pollock on the halftime show in College Football 14. I don't know if they're going to be or if they're going to be one of the teams maybe doing it, but Kevin Connors, who is with ESPN, he said that he will be doing the halftime show. So that might open the door for some potential multiple broadcast teams. Kurt kind of left it open when he said that quote that we went to earlier. He didn't really dive into if that meant that there could be, an ESPN broadcast, a Fox broadcast, a CBS broadcast, something like that, like what we saw with NCAA March Madness 10. It really hasn't been done, to my knowledge, in a sports game since. That was really cool. I thought that was a feature that was ahead of its time. It had an ESPN broadcast and a CBS broadcast. Of course, college football and the war of the networks, I think that kind of leaves it open for that possibility. But that hasn't been confirmed yet, but there has been multiple people that are saying they're going to be in the game. And as we mentioned, Kevin Connors is one of those. He said he's going to do the halftime show. He was in an interview with Syracuse podcast host Brent Axe and said he will be providing in-game updates in the form of a halftime show. And he says it really seems like you're watching a televised game. Now, he said that he wasn't getting like an early copy or anything like that, but I guess from what he had seen of the game so far, and this was several weeks back, so that's pretty cool that he said it looks just like a televised game. Jaylen Prince, shout out Jaylen Prince. He's the co-host of Two Dudes with Sports News podcast. He got to interview Reese Davis. And again, Reese didn't have a whole lot to say, but there were little nuggets that kind of gave you some insight as to what is to come, perhaps, in College Football 25. And one that stood out to me that I really like a lot that we haven't seen in years past, Reese said, quote, we have opportunities in the game to talk about some of the legends who've played here within the game while you're playing and compare guys who are playing to Tua, to Bryce Young, or whoever. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Now, I kind of interpreted that. If you have a different thought on this, definitely leave a comment and let us know what you thought he might mean. But I'm thinking like, I've got my athlete at Akron and he's just killing it, doing numbers. It might pop up during the game. Hey, Ben Spicer just broke the single game passing record that was set by Graham Harrell. I don't know who it is. We'll say Graham Harrell. Shout out Graham Harrell in that Texas Tech offense in the mid 2000s. He just broke Graham Harrell's single game passing record. I think that would be pretty cool. That's something that we didn't see in the past. And even if it's just quarterback number 6 for Texas Tech, I mean, that would be cool and something that we haven't seen on past iterations of the game too. Chris Fowler, another guy who's going to be in the game. Of course, he's kind of the voice of college football in some respects, announces the national championship games. I almost feel like he's going to be the main guy. Now, in 2014, it was Brad Nessler, of course. Brad is now with CBS, so I feel like that kind of leaves it to where if they were going to do CBS broadcast, maybe when you're playing the SEC or something like that, Brad might be the guy there. But I think it's got to be Chris Fowler at this point. He's kind of become the voice of college football. Although, again, I would love to see Gus Johnson on those Fox games. That would be pretty cool, too. But Chris gave us a behind-the-scenes look into his recordings, and he kind of gave some insight into all the different things he's had to do. And Kirk said he's been recording for like 2 years as well. I would imagine Chris has been recording for some time, too. But Chris kind of dove into all the different situations that he's had to come out with audio files for, and just if you're punting it on second down, just breaking that decision down and stuff like that. So EA has put in a lot of detail into this game. Someone asked Chris, or Chris kind of asked himself, will there be appropriate excitement in the game when my team scores a touchdown? To which Chris replied, hell yes. Love it, Chris. He said, EA insists on realism. I sat here in an hour and said touchdown Alabama so many times. So that was pretty cool to hear that. But I think the broadcast teams is something that we're really going to have that's different from NCAA Football 14, whether that be different personalities on the air announcing your game, multiple broadcasts. Again, hasn't been anything concrete that's come out. I'm hoping that will be something that's discussed when the full reveal comes out in May. But that's just some insight from some people that are working closely and are in the actual game itself. Next up is uniforms. Now, uniforms definitely have changed a lot since the last release of college football video game, the NCAA 14 release. They had some cool uniforms on there and a lot of different combinations, but I think this is something that could really change in college football 25, of course, because uniforms have changed so much and there's just so many different combinations and so forth with that. But we got some details on that. Again, from Kevin Connors. I don't know why he kind of threw this in there. I guess he just thought it was cool himself. But he mentioned that the players would be able to wear hoodies. Now, they don't wear that in the NFL. They don't do that in the NFL. So you could actually have the hoodies like some players wear in college football. Apparently, that's going to be a part of the game. So he discussed that. He said, there's going to be a lot of uniform options, fight songs as well. Again, he didn't really dive in a whole lot. But sticking with the jersey theme, several helmet companies have actually come out and said that they are already confirmed to be in the game. That is Riddell, Ficus, Visus, and Schutt. They confirmed their helmets will all be in the game. So a little diversity there. I think NCAA Football 14 had like 3 or 4 different brands you could use as well. So that's not really a surprise, but they did come out and confirm that they will be in the game. Now, where the uniform discussion got interesting was with Matt Brown. He is a sports reporter and kind of an EA in the know guy. He does a lot of great things, just discussing the game itself, researching the game, providing some insight and analysis to the game. I've linked his website and page down in the description, so definitely make sure you check it out. I know he's taking a little break from the college football writing and reporting for a couple weeks, but as the news and details come out further with the reveal and things of that sort, I imagine Matt will be very busy. But he discussed on a podcast interview the ability to have historical uniforms. He said EA has reached out, and not only discussed uniforms that were around the last 5 years or since NCAA Football 14 came out, but even like historical uniforms. I know he mentioned the original Ole Miss powder blue uniforms, which I thought was pretty cool. 80s throwbacks, things like that. Now, he did say that would probably be one of the microtransactions in the game. If you want to get those kind of exclusive or special uniforms for the school, that might be something where you pay $6, $7, $8 and you're able to unlock that from what Matt was saying. But I know they're going to kind of go all out. I would assume with the uniform combinations that are default and already in the game. He also kind of teased the possibility of schools, we see schools come out with new uniforms and jerseys every year. So he kind of discussed, hey, if a school knows they're going to come out with a uniform in October, but they haven't released it to the public yet, they can put that in the game and save it until they actually release it to where players can actually download that as it comes out. So I thought that was pretty cool too. And then a quote that stood out from Matt, and you guys are going to like this. This is something I pulled from that podcast interview too. He says, quote, user customization and user-generated content is a priority. When asked about team builder uniforms and things of that sort, he said, quote, I can say user and custom content is a priority in the coming release. He didn't say that we would have team builder or things of that sort. But again, if it's an NCAA Football 14, I would imagine and hope that it's going to be in College Football 25. Speaking of that, let's look at some game modes now. Matt Brown did say in an interview, some of the game modes that we will have will be Ultimate Team, of course, Dynasty Mode, Road to Glory. I'm excited to see the changes to Road to Glory. I can't wait personally to win the Heisman at a MAC school and then transfer, and then maybe transfer again just for the fun of it. See if I can win 3 or 4 Heismans at 3 or 4 different schools. I think that would be pretty cool and so fitting for college football and what it's become today. But he didn't dive too much into the other game modes. I think it was because he honestly didn't know at this point. And a lot of the interviews and podcasts, people were being asked, and Kirk Herbstreit was asked, Matt was asked if we would have a return of the mascot. I think it's mascot mashup, where you can basically play an exhibition game between the mascots. Nobody has said that that's coming out just yet, so we don't know about that. But confirmed, we do have the exhibition mode, of course, Road to Glory, Dynasty mode, and Ultimate Team. Now, a big part of college football, obviously, is the look and feel. That's what separates it from the NFL, and that's what separates college football from Madden, right? I mean, you don't have the bands in Madden. You don't have things like that. So, obviously, that's a very important part and focus for EA in College Football 25 is just the look and feel in general. And again, Matt gave us some good details. Didn't expand a whole lot, but gave us some little tidbits of information when discussing just the feel of college football. He said Oklahoma's marching band, for example, has submitted more than just Boomer Sooner, and they're also emphasizing student chants that are appropriate. So LSU, sorry, I don't think NEC is going to be, the chant is going to be heard in College Football 25. We might get like the band's version of it, but I don't think we're going to get the crowd. Maybe you could insert that in the crowd noise or something like that. Virtually all the guys interviewed in all the videos and podcasts and interviews that I watched said that they're working hard, to capture the pageantry of college football. One thing I know that is confirmed is if a bowl game is not played at a college stadium or an NFL stadium, it will not be included. So one example of that would be they're not going to have the bowl game that's at Fenway Park. I'm not sure what that's called, but that will not be in the game. Just those games that are on college campuses or NFL stadiums or college stadiums or NFL stadiums, I should say. Another interesting little bit is that the trophies, the Heisman Trophy will be in the game, but the other trophies like the Biletnikoff, the Remington, the Bednarik, trophies like that, they will not be included in the game. Not really sure why, but the big one and the main one, the Heisman Trophy, will be included in the game. So that's important. And then last up, before we close out the video, by the way, make sure you drop a like and subscribe. I've got some more College Football 25 related videos planned that will be coming out in the next couple days. So definitely turn on those notifications for when that drops. I'm going to be doing a video on how much college football in general has changed since 2013 when we had the last release of a college football video game. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But before we close out, I wanted to talk about the reported leaked screenshots of Missouri Stadium. Someone had posted those, and there's a lot of speculation surrounding that. Some people are saying, this is like pre-beta screenshots of the stadium, like it's not really something you should get worked up or mad about, because a lot of people were pissed saying like, hey, this looks just like NCAA Football 14. Then there were some other people who were overanalyzing the details, like, hey, look at the lights, look at the sky in the background, like that's definitely a change from what we saw in NCAA 14. I've got them on the screen there, but I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into that. I'm kind of, waiting until we get the full release coming up here in just about a month. Fingers crossed. Can't wait. I told you guys I was going to be much more optimistic this time around as opposed to what I was last time. But yeah, College Football 25 coming up here in a couple months. I'm very excited, looking forward to it, and I can't wait to start a dynasty mode with some of these new teams that weren't in NCAA Football 14. By the way, I'm curious who you are going to be starting a dynasty with. Drop a comment, let me know who you can't wait to play with in College Football 25. Until next time, I'm Ben Spicer. You're watching Spiced Up Productions here on YouTube.